Sagittarius Cancer vas acaer de culo viene llamada infarto. Recibes noticia inesperada no lo creeras. Dear Sagittarius, it's beautiful that you are here, in this very moment, where there is no need to rush, only the need for your presence. Today, we open this space just for you. A place where the soul can breathe. Where the fire within you, sometimes blazing, sometimes quietly glowing, can be called by the gentlest of words. What you are about to hear is not a prediction. It's a reminder. A message that bears your name. And the time is now. There are chapters in life we don't want to look back on. Not because we weren't strong enough, but because we had to be strong for too long. For Sagittarius, the sign of light, freedom, and belief in the good, the hardest thing is not the challenge itself, but when the inner light dims, and you no longer recognize yourself. I believe that in recent times, you've gone through things that no one but you could truly understand. Silent battles, sleepless nights, where the smile was just a mask. Moments when you thought you couldn't go on, but you kept walking. Quietly. No one noticed. But the universe did. And I believe, deep down, you know it too, you never gave up. I used to think strength was about overcoming everything. But now, I think differently. True strength is daring to walk through pain, without hiding, without turning away. It's holding on to kindness, even when the world becomes indifferent. For Sagittarius, pain is often held together by hope. But you know what? You don't always have to hold yourself together. Some days, just breathing is a victory. And today, I want you to look at yourself, not with regret or blame, but to say, I made it through that path. And now, I deserve to step into a new chapter. You don't need to hurry. You don't need to be okay right away. But please, allow yourself to believe, the hardest part is behind you. Because a door only truly opens when you stop staring at the one that has already closed. Gently close the things that no longer serve you. Whether it's a habit, a memory, or someone who once meant everything. And if you can, write it down, or whisper quietly to yourself what you have learned from your own pain. Because once you can name that lesson, it no longer controls you. You are free. You return to yourself, a Sagittarius who once fell, but never stopped walking. There are things in life that don't come when we expect them. They arrive quietly, on an ordinary morning, or an afternoon when we've long stopped hoping. But it is precisely those moments that change everything. For Sagittarius, what you're moving toward is not a dramatic miracle, but a gentle, profound transformation. A piece of news, a call, a meeting, it may only last a few minutes, but it carries enough energy to reignite your spirit. I know you once hoped a lot, and you were disappointed more than once. You placed your trust in things that seemed certain, only for them to fall apart silently. Perhaps you've grown used to comforting yourself, creating your own motivation to keep going. But today, I want you to know this: good things don't always come when we're ready. They come when we need them, even if we don't realize it at the time. The cards laid out before us do not speak of something returning from the past, but of a new knock from the future. A door opens when you've stopped waiting. A message will arrive, not to take you back to where you've been, but to help you move forward with a lighter heart. It might be a work opportunity, an invitation you once thought you weren't lucky enough to receive. Or simply a few words, someone finally saying what you've been waiting to hear for so long. The magic isn't in the content of the message, but in how it makes you feel. As if the universe were saying to you, I see you, I never forgot you. And that alone is enough to make you stand taller, breathe deeper, and begin again, not from zero, but from a place of experience and renewed light. To me, real change doesn't come from major events. It comes from a feeling. That moment when you realize you've changed. That you no longer react the same way. That you no longer beat yourself up like before. The message arrives. But what matters more is that you're ready to receive it as a new version of yourself. So if you're waiting for something right now, don't close your heart for fear it won't come. And don't get lost in fantasy only to be disappointed. Live each moment fully. Because the deepest transformations often come not when we chase them, but when we let go and keep believing. Today, if you're hearing this, I believe you've become steady enough to receive something new. Not because you're luckier than anyone else, but because you've learned how to endure, how to stay grounded in loneliness, and how to keep believing in the light, even if it's just a faint glimmer. And if something within you just stirred ever so slightly, let that feeling flow through you. Let yourself be surprised. Let yourself receive. Because what you've been waiting for may already be on its way to you, in the quietest, yet most miraculous of ways. There's a kind of exhaustion that no one sees, not in the body, but in the soul. It's when you feel like you've tried everything, but nothing seems to move forward. It's when someone tells you, start over, and all you can do is give a half smile. Because even you don't know where you're standing anymore. But dear Sagittarius, starting over doesn't mean returning to the beginning. Starting over means continuing on, carrying with you everything you've learned, even the pain. I believe you are standing at the threshold of a rebirth, not immediately dazzling, but clear and deeply felt. The dreams you thought had expired are slowly awakening in silence. The plans you once shelved under, someday, are quietly resurfacing in your mind, this time not vague, but with clearer shape. Because now, you are someone else. You once thought, I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to try again. But the truth is, you've been brave ever since the moment you didn't collapse. The fact that you still believe in something, even just a little, is proof that the light is still inside you. For Sagittarius, new beginnings don't come from the pressure to change. They come from the moment you realize you no longer belong to the old pain. No longer want to shrink yourself to fit a place that has outgrown you. And that's what rebirth really is, when you no longer have to pretend. When you no longer have to trade yourself in for acceptance. When you choose yourself, in the calmest of ways. You might start again with a job, a project, or simply with yourself, gently, sincerely, no longer emotionally indebted to the past. What matters isn't what you do, but the energy with which you do it. Not out of fear. Not because you need something to show the world. But because you know it's time to step out of that old cocoon. I'm not saying everything will be easy. But I will say this, you'll start to feel lighter, little by little. You'll realize that simply letting go of what no longer fits, allows life to fall into place on its own. Don't force yourself to have all the answers right now. Just take one step, and then another. A new beginning isn't a race. It's a return to what makes you feel truly alive. And if there's something within you that's waiting to come back to life, an old dream, a forgotten part of your character, or simply a quiet, deep longing, then I invite you to do this. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes. And softly ask yourself, where am I ready to go from here? Because rebirth doesn't arrive when everything is perfectly in place. It arrives the moment you dare to say, I don't know what lies ahead, but I will walk forward, as my truest self. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from feeling like no one truly understands you. Even when you're in a relationship or surrounded by people, you might still feel lost, as if your heart is speaking a language no one else can hear. For Sagittarius, love is never just about attachment or formality. You don't need someone to fill a void. You need a companion, truly. Someone deep enough to see, behind your smiling eyes, a soul that has been hurt and is still healing. I know you've trusted before. You've hoped. And you've been disappointed, enough to close off parts of yourself that once stayed open. Maybe you've even told yourself, I don't need love anymore. But the truth is, you don't need half-hearted love anymore. You don't need a relationship that costs you your peace. You don't need to keep holding on to something that no longer fits. Because real love means being allowed to be yourself. Not a convenient version. Not an ideal image someone expects. But you, complete, honest, sometimes complex, sometimes contradictory, but always real. And here's the magic: when you begin to love yourself deeply enough, life will bring you people who know how to love you the right way. I don't know who's coming your way, but the energy that surrounds you right now says this. A new relationship, or a deep shift in an existing one, is coming very close. If you're already in love, now is a good time for both of you to pause and really see each other, not to test, but to understand. Not to judge, but to hold hands and move into a new chapter, more mature, more peaceful. And if you're still alone, let me tell you this: you don't need to search. They will come, to the right place, at the right time, in the right way. They won't arrive to teach you another painful lesson. They'll come to build something with you, from empathy, from trust, from stories that don't need to be explained but are simply felt. It might be someone you never expected. Maybe an old friend returning with a new heart. Or someone completely unfamiliar, but carrying within them the very things you once thought no longer existed. True love doesn't make you lose your direction. It makes you want to become a better version of yourself, but not by losing who you are. It doesn't promise forever with words, it proves itself by showing up every day. Even in ways so simple no one notices. It's a hand held for no reason. A glance that tells you there's nothing more you need to do. It's a sense of safety, one you don't have to ask permission to feel. So if you've ever doubted, felt tired, or told yourself, maybe I'm not meant for love, then today, I want you to try again, not with someone else, but with yourself. Ask yourself, if love showed up right now, would I be brave enough to receive it? Because sometimes, what makes us miss a real love isn't that it didn't come, but that we stopped opening our hearts. And I invite you, in the stillness of your soul right now, to whisper something simple: I am ready to be loved, in the way my heart deserves. There are times when you're not tired from working too much, but from holding yourself together for too long. It's not that your body is weak, but that your mind has been stretched trying to hold up what no one else can see. For Sagittarius, a soul that loves freedom and always carries brightness, it's hard to admit that you, too, sometimes feel exhausted. But today, you don't have to keep pushing. No one can run forever in a race without stopping to breathe. I know you've been patient. You've told yourself, just a little more. Then day after day, you forgot how to truly rest. Your body and soul are tired, but you've come to think that's normal. You've been healing yourself through silence, by pulling away from everything, thinking you just need time to be okay. But sometimes, what you need isn't time, it's permission. Permission to be tired, to hurt, to feel weak, so that real recovery can begin. Health isn't just about doctors or prescriptions. It starts with how you treat yourself every day. Have you slept enough? Are you drinking enough water? Are you listening to the emotions buried deep in your chest? Are you stopping whenever your heart feels overloaded? You're a Sagittarius who loves to move, to explore, but sometimes, the biggest lessons come when you finally sit still. And in that stillness, you'll hear something no one else can, your own soul saying, please, take care of me. You can't fully love someone else when you're exhausted. You can't build a great dream if you forget to nurture your own being. Healing isn't a state, it's a journey. And that journey begins with the smallest of things: a deep night's sleep, a meal that truly nourishes you, an unhurried afternoon, a moment when you stop trying to please anyone at all. If you're carrying a worry about health, your own, or that of someone you love, then I want you to know. What's most needed right now is gentleness. Gentleness with yourself. Gentleness with others. Don't rush. Don't force things to go back to the old rhythm. True healing begins when you choose to live a little softer, not because you're giving up, but because you deserve to live more deeply, more slowly, more fully. And if right now you're listening to this with a heart worn out from holding too much, I only wish for one thing, that you sit down for a moment. You don't have to do anything. Just place your hand on your chest and softly ask, have I taken care of myself today? Because sometimes, the simplest miracle is being heard by your own self. After the days of bracing and holding on, when your body finally begins to breathe again, when your pace slows down, you'll start to hear something else, a sound no one else can hear but you, the voice of your own heart. Sagittarius is a sign that loves motion, freedom, endless discovery. But even this sign, blessed by Jupiter, needs quiet spaces to go inward. There's a truth we often avoid, when everything around us goes quiet. The questions we once ignored come rushing in. We can't hide them behind noise, behind work, behind shallow relationships. And in that moment, we finally realize how long we've abandoned ourselves. How long we've lived to the rhythm of others. How much we've tried to please too many things, while losing sight of what we truly need. Sagittarius is often mistaken for someone who wanders aimlessly. But in truth, you are always in search of meaning. And not every journey begins on a road out there. Many journeys begin from within, from a sudden pause, a sleepless night, or a nameless sadness. In those moments, you don't need to understand all your feelings. You just need the courage to sit still, to look inward, and to stop running from yourself. I know, maybe you've become the one others lean on. You say uplifting words, you inspire, you encourage, but maybe it's been a long time since someone encouraged you. You're not the kind of person who easily says, I need a break. But today, let me say it for you. You are allowed to rest. Allowed to not reply right away. Allowed to say no. Allowed to disappear for a while to return to the oldest of questions, who am I? Am I living by my own values, or someone else's? It is in that silence that you begin to reconnect with the purest part of your soul. You'll remember what once stirred your spirit. You'll remember why you began a certain journey. You'll remember the version of yourself that was once so brave, not because they had no fear, but because they always walked with faith. And most importantly, you don't need to find yourself again. Because you were never truly lost. You've just been silent for too long to hear the voice within. And now, as things begin to settle, that voice returns, gentle, clear, deeper than ever. If right now, you're standing at a crossroads, not knowing which way to go, don't rush into a decision. Don't choose based on fear. Don't keep moving forward just because you're afraid to stop. Stay with yourself for a while. Trust that silence can also be a direction. And sometimes, staying still with your own soul is the farthest, and most necessary, journey a Sagittarius can take. After the silence, that's usually when the truth begins to show itself most clearly. Not with noise. Not with drama. Just a very ordinary moment, when you look at something old with new eyes and realize, I've lived too long in something unfair and thought it was normal. To Sagittarius, justice is sacred. Not justice in books, but fairness in every relationship, every word, every act. You live with sincerity, and you hope others will meet you there. But life doesn't always return the honesty you've offered. How many times have you held back, sacrificed, chosen your words carefully, just to keep the peace? How many times have you stayed silent so as not to hurt others, even though you were the one being hurt? Those things, maybe no one else sees, but the universe sees. And I believe this is the time when the balance begins to shift. What you've given, with good intentions, with kindness, is coming back. Not as revenge or in a shallow, you reap what you sow way, but in the form of opportunities, awakenings, and the power to choose. You're beginning to see which relationships have drained you, which jobs no longer reflect your true values, which beliefs have expired. And most importantly, you're beginning to choose truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard to accept. Because you're tired of half-truths. Truth may hurt, but only truth can set you free. For many people, speaking their truth is a luxury. But you've come too far on this journey of awareness to keep pretending. You don't need to be fine to please others. You don't need to be gentle just so no one feels upset. The truth inside you deserves to be spoken, not to fight anyone, but because at last, you've chosen to stand with yourself. And if there's something you've held in, ignored, or thought, never mind, about, then right now, I invite you to face it. No need to explain. No need to justify. Just quietly say to yourself, I deserve fairness, and I will no longer be silent. When you begin to live in truth, something magical happens. The energy that's been blocked for so long begins to move. Gently, but clearly. Like a fresh stream flowing through land you thought had gone dry. This is your Sagittarius season, the time of expansion, creativity, and growth. You don't need to be better than someone. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to begin something again, with your full presence. A small idea forming in your mind. A task you've delayed for too long. An old hobby that once made you happy and you forgot. Now, all of those things return, not to decorate your life, but to remind you, you were born to create something meaningful. Creativity doesn't always look like artists, painters, or writers. Sometimes, your creativity is in the way you prepare a meal for your family. How you rearrange your home. How you plan a trip you once dreamed of. It's in the way you view life, not as a place of heaviness anymore, but one full of possibility. When you shift your inner energy, the outer world responds. Expansion doesn't come from having more. It comes from starting to believe, I can. You can do something differently. You can restart a project you once set aside. You can say yes to the opportunities that once scared you. Because now, you're no longer ruled by your past. You don't live from memory, you live from the belief that you are still growing each day, each moment. For Sagittarius, growth and exploration, both outward and inward, are what make you feel truly alive. So take that step. Be proactive. Don't wait for perfection to act. What you need isn't a perfect plan, it's the courage to begin. If you've been carrying a small dream, even the tiniest one, then today, I invite you to light it again. Give it a bit of time, a bit of trust, one small action. Because you don't need grand success to be enough. As long as you still want to live, still want to create something from your heart, you are already growing. After all the movement, all the changes, all the dreams you've worked hard to pursue, there will come a moment when you pause and ask yourself, what have I forgotten along the way? The answer isn't outside. It's within you, in a very personal place you may have left behind. Buried under all the living you've done for others. For your roles, for your responsibilities. To Sagittarius, life is always a journey of discovery. But the further you go, the more you realize what you're looking for was never out there. It was always inside. In the dreams you had when you were younger. In the values you once cherished but put away in some drawer for the sake of being practical. In the feelings you ignored because you thought adults weren't supposed to feel weak. True connection doesn't come from doing more. It comes from peeling away the layers you've carried for years. You don't need to become someone. You just need to return to the version of you who once knew what they loved, what they disliked, how they wanted to live. The one who could close their eyes and still feel their heart full of belief. You might be in a place of in-between. Not the old you, not yet the new you. It feels vague. It feels uncertain. But that is the season of transformation. It's the moment you are being quietly reborn. No one sees exactly what's happening inside you. But you know. You are changing. And what you need most now is not to speed up, but to stay with yourself long enough, honest enough, patient enough. If it's been too long since you asked, "Who am I?" then today, I invite you to return to that question. You don't need the perfect answer. You just need to give yourself permission to listen. Maybe you'll write a few lines in your journal. Maybe you'll revisit a song that once moved you. Maybe you'll step out onto the balcony, take a deep breath, and say, "I'm still here, I'm still alive, I can still feel." And just like that, you've reconnected. So if you feel empty, lost, or disconnected from yourself, stop running. Pause. Close your eyes. And ask, "Am I still in there?" Because you were never gone. You've only been waiting to be called back home. Once you've had the courage to return to yourself, the next thing isn't a revolution or a dramatic turning point. It's stability. Not stability that means unchanging, but the kind that comes from within. It's when you're no longer living to prove anything. It's when joy no longer comes from applause, but from a calm soul. For Sagittarius, who lives wholeheartedly through ideals, dreams, and adventures. Sometimes the word stability seems like a contradiction. But you will reach a point in life when you no longer want to race. You don't need to win an argument, outshine someone, or always be impressive. You just want to live gently, without losing who you are. And that's when you realize, peace is not a destination. It's how you show up in each moment. It's when you enter a room without needing attention, yet still knowing your worth. It's when you don't need to say much about what you've done or gone through, because your eyes already say enough. Stability doesn't mean no change. It means you've grown enough not to be swept away by fleeting emotions. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. When to hold on and when to let go. You no longer need a reason to feel happy. You don't need anyone's validation to feel worthy. Your joy now is a warm cup of tea on a rainy afternoon. A moment of being alone, and still feeling whole. A heartwarming phone call, an unconditional hug, a day that passes quietly and peacefully. You used to travel far, dream big, love deeply, hurt deeply. And now, you no longer have to prove anything. Because all those experiences have brought you here, to the place where you realize, living peacefully is also a kind of success. So if you've ever felt too ordinary, like there's nothing special, nothing to boast about, know this. You are entering one of the most precious phases of life. A time when you no longer need to strive to become someone else. Being yourself is already enough. When peace settles inside you, the outer world begins to shift in a very different way. No more rushing. No more chaos. Everything begins to unfold as if it had already been arranged, and you'll be surprised to realize. You don't need to force anything to arrive. Because everything is already finding its way to you, at just the right time. For Sagittarius, a soul always longing for freedom, you've never feared change. But this time, change doesn't come from a need to be different. It comes from a quiet place within. You are ready. Maybe it's a new trip. A decision to move homes, change jobs, or step into an entirely different space. Or maybe it's a shift no one else can see. Letting go of an old relationship, an invisible burden, a piece of yourself that no longer belongs on this path. True movement isn't about where you go, but about who you become in the process. Every decision now carries greater maturity. You're no longer running to escape, but walking to explore. You're no longer moving out of dissatisfaction, but because you know, you've outgrown the old dream. And when you change from the inside, you'll be surprised at how the world around you changes too. People who once hurt you no longer affect you. Places that once felt limiting now motivate you. You don't need anyone to push you forward anymore, because you are already walking with clarity and inner strength. If you sense a major shift approaching, don't resist it. Let it unfold, naturally. Ask yourself, which door am I ready to open next? Because sometimes, life only needs one small, brave step to begin a much greater journey. There are things you've held on to for too long, not because they still mean something, but because you once thought, if I let this go, what will be left of me? But letting go does not mean losing. It is an intentional act. It's when you know it's time to be lighter, so you can rise. For Sagittarius, you've been someone who embraced everything. Both the things that made you smile, and the things that broke you. You've kept memories, old dreams, fractured relationships, because you believe in loyalty. You believed that things would eventually mend. But perhaps because of that, you've unknowingly turned your heart into a room too cramped for anything new to enter. Letting go here does not mean forgetting. It means accepting that something has finished its role. Some people come only to leave. Some memories arrive to teach you something, then fade into the past. And once you've learned the lesson, you don't have to carry the weight anymore. You can put it down with gratitude, not regret. Ask yourself, what am I still holding that has already expired? A responsibility that no longer belongs to me? A guilt from the past? A relationship where I no longer feel like myself? If you dare to face it, name it, and say goodbye, you will feel lighter. Not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand, what truly belongs to you will never leave. So if you're carrying something that weighs on your heart, I invite you to take a deep breath and ask, is it time to let this go? Because only when your hands are empty, can you fully receive what's meant to come next. Modern life teaches us speed. Immediate results after effort. But the most meaningful things don't come early. They come on time. And for Sagittarius, who often needs to see clear results to keep going, the most important lesson is to persevere in silence. You might be working on something that hasn't yet borne fruit. A passion project not yet acknowledged. A personal transformation that others don't yet see. But did you know? The most vital seeds often lie dormant the longest before they rise. You are on the right path, even if you're moving slowly. And that's what matters. Because going slowly means you're building something solid. You're learning not just how to get results, but how to build a foundation. Believe this, no effort is ever wasted. No kindness is ever meaningless. And no sincere act goes unnoticed, because the universe sees everything you quietly do. If you feel like you're falling behind, don't blame yourself. Remember, those with deep roots don't rush. Those with inner strength don't need applause. And those who are growing, sometimes only need one gentle reminder. Keep going. So if you're in the middle, and the light at the end hasn't appeared yet, don't quit. The light is still there. And you are getting closer every day. Keep walking, even if just one small step. Because that step may lead you exactly where you belong. After everything you've been through, perhaps what you need to hear now isn't a distant promise, but something near. Something real. Happiness is real. Not the kind in books. Not the perfect image on a magazine cover. But the kind that is simple, warm, enough, that brings peace to your heart. For Sagittarius, you once dreamed of wide open skies. You believed happiness had to come with achievement. But in time, you'll see, sometimes happiness is simply being yourself, among people who don't ask you to change. It's having a home to return to. A moment in the day when no words are needed, and your heart still feels warm. A simple meal, cooked with love. A hug at just the right time. A gaze that listens. True happiness is not something you have to chase. It's something you realize when you slow down enough to feel it. And maybe it's been there all along. You were just too busy surviving pain, trying, worrying about the future. Today, I just want to remind you, you've come a long way. And you deserve a life that's gentler, happier, more true to your soul. If you still hesitate, still doubt, still wonder whether happiness is meant for you, then right now, allow yourself to believe it is. Whisper to yourself, I deserve to be happy, and I allow that happiness to come to me. Because sometimes, all it takes is your gentle yes, and the universe will extend its hand. And now, if you're still here, still listening, I know this one thing, your heart is still alive. No matter how many storms you've endured, how many times you've broken, how many times you thought you couldn't go on, you're still here. And that alone, that truth, is something worth honoring. Maybe you don't have all the answers yet. Maybe you're still walking, still learning, still healing. But you are not who you used to be. You've started choosing yourself. Started telling the truth about your feelings. Started slowing down to really see where you are, what you want, and what you need. And that is how a Sagittarius truly matures, not by declaring to the world, but by finding clarity within. I don't know where you are in this journey. At the beginning, somewhere in the middle, or near the shore. But I believe this, you are not alone. Somewhere out there, there are hearts learning to stand tall like you. Souls learning how to love themselves again. And perhaps, someone out there needs to hear your story. So if anything in this journey touched you, reminded you of who you are, made you want to live more honestly, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a note. Write down what you feel. Or send this to someone you believe might need it. The universe always sends the right messages at the right time, through people who seem like coincidence. And today, you may be the one who brings light to someone else. And finally, close your eyes once more, take a deep breath, and gently whisper. I survived, I've learned, and now I'm beginning to live in a way my soul truly deserves. Thank you for being here. For being a Sagittarius who is sincere, brave, and wholehearted. I'll see you again on the next journey.